You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. Before we dive in, let me do my usual disclaimer. My Hebrew pronunciation is not always on point. That's partly because my voice isn't a real human voice. It's an artificial intelligence voice. So if I make Hebrew sound like a GPS recalculating routes in the middle of Manhattan traffic, please forgive me. With that out of the way, let's get started. Today's topic is the 39 prohibitions on Shabbat. These are the categories of work that traditional Jewish law says we should avoid doing on the seventh day. And before you think, 39 things, how will I remember that? Don't worry, I'll break them down in a way that's easier to digest than your aunt's kugel. Think of it less like a boring rulebook and more like a really quirky list of what not to do if Shabbat were run like a TV game show. So what are these 39 things anyway? The Hebrew word for them is Melachot, which doesn't just mean work like your 9-to-5 job. It's more like creative labor, the kind of stuff that changes or builds the world. The rabbis came up with this list based on the types of work that went into building the Mishkan, the portable desert sanctuary. Think of it as the ultimate DIY project: giant tent, gold details, embroidered curtains, holy furniture. Since Shabbat is about resting, they said, okay, if that's what we did to build the sanctuary, then those are the kinds of activities we'll pause on for one day a week. It's not about skipping chores just because they're annoying. It's about putting creative control in the back seat. Imagine if the director yelled, "Cut!" in the middle of life's movie once a week. Shabbat is that pause button. The 39 categories sound intimidating, but they break down into groups that make sense. First, there are all the agricultural ones: planting, plowing, reaping, gathering, threshing, winnowing, selecting, grinding, sifting, kneading, and baking. That's 11 already, all about turning wheat into bread. Back in ancient times, this was hard labor. Today, most of us aren't out there threshing wheat, but some rules get applied in surprising ways. For example, reaping could connect to picking fruit from a tree, and grinding can even apply to pushing the button on your coffee grinder. So yes, if you're thinking, no Starbucks Frappuccino run on Shabbat, you're technically right. These categories remind us that even in a modern world of DoorDash and instant oatmeal, there's wisdom in slowing down and not being stuck on the hamster wheel of production. Next up are the clothing-related ones: shearing wool, bleaching, combing, dyeing, spinning, weaving, making 2 loops, weaving 2 threads, separating 2 threads, tying, untying, sewing stitches, and tearing for the purpose of sewing. This list basically covers everything needed to turn sheep fuzz into a snazzy new outfit. If you've ever watched Project Runway, you know this is a lot of work. The rabbis weren't banning style, they were saying that one day a week. You don't have to be a fashion designer or tailor. In modern life, this shows up in rules about not tying certain kinds of knots or not doing crafts. It's like Shabbat is giving you a break from being Martha Stewart. Instead of sewing that loose button back onto your shirt, Shabbat says, you'll survive one day looking a little less put together. Nobody's judging you. Then there's the paper and building section. These are the prohibitions related to writing and constructing: trapping, slaughtering, skinning, tanning, scraping, marking, cutting, writing 2 letters, erasing in order to write 2 letters, building, demolishing, extinguishing, kindling a fire, striking the final hammer blow, and carrying from one domain to another. If that sounds like a mixed bag, you're right, but think about it. This covers everything from making leather scrolls, writing on them, building a house to keep them in, and carrying them around. In modern times, this gets interpreted as not writing, not using electronics, not flipping on light switches. Why? Because electricity is seen as kindling fire. So when you hear about people not turning on lights or using their phones on Shabbat, this is where it comes from. Shabbat is basically the original unplug challenge. Except instead of a trendy wellness practice, it's a 3,000-year-old idea. One of the most relatable categories is carrying. That's right, simply moving stuff around can be considered a form of work. The classic rule is not carrying from a private space, like your home, into a public space, like the street. That's why Jewish communities often build an eruv, which is basically a symbolic boundary that turns a neighborhood into one big private space so carrying is allowed. Think of it as a giant invisible Wi-Fi network, except instead of internet, it's halachic permission to carry your bag, your stroller, or your kiddush kugel to your friend's house. Without it, Shabbat can feel like a don't touch anything game. With it, life is manageable. The eruv is one of those cool examples of rabbinic creativity, showing how Jewish law adapts while staying rooted in tradition.
This podcast is supported by Trust and Will, an online estate planning service. Visit trustandwill.com for details.
If you're thinking about what you'll leave behind, Trust and Will can make sure your values live on.
For me, it's beyond money. It's about responsibility. When I pass on, I want my children and grandchildren to be provided for, of course, but I also want their spiritual futures protected. Trust and Will made it easy to make sure that any decision I had to make in sickness or in death would reflect the values that I've upheld all my life. And you know what? Trust and Will gave me the peace of mind that my legacy would be more about purpose than possessions.
Protect your legacy and your loved ones today, tomorrow, and beyond with Trust and Will. Get 20% off when you visit trustandwill.com/support. That's trustandwill.com/support to get 20% off. trustandwill.com/SUPPORT.
Now, the big question is, why all the details? Why not just say, don't work, and leave it at that? Here's the thing. Work means different things to different people. For some, mowing the lawn feels like exercise. For others, it's torture. By defining 39 categories, the tradition makes things clear. It's like when Netflix gives you 39 genres of movies instead of just drama and comedy. The rabbis wanted to make sure people understood what counts as creating or transforming on Shabbat. And once you get past the initial overwhelm, you realize the rules aren't about making life harder. They're about protecting the vibe of Shabbat. One day a week, you're free from endless to-do lists, texts, and chores. It's the world's first do not disturb mode, built right into life. Of course, different Jewish communities approach these 39 categories differently. Orthodox Jews are strict about avoiding all of them, which can lead to creative hacks like Shabbat elevators that stop automatically on every floor, or timers for lights so you don't have to flip a switch. Conservative Jews might allow some use of electricity, but still avoid cooking or writing. Reform Jews often take a looser approach, focusing more on the spirit of rest and togetherness rather than the exact rules. The beauty is that Shabbat remains recognizable across the board, even if observed differently. Imagine 3 people on Shabbat. One won't touch their phone, one checks their phone only for emergencies, and one is scrolling Instagram during dinner. They're all in the same tradition, just playing on different difficulty settings. Let's be real. Some of the 39 prohibitions feel outdated at first glance. You might wonder, when was the last time I skinned an animal or wove 2 threads together? But here's where the categories still matter. They teach us to notice our actions. Shabbat is about mindfulness. When you stop yourself from flipping on a light, you realize how automatic that habit is. When you don't cook, you realize how much time you normally spend preparing meals. The details force you to live differently for 25 hours. It's like living in a low-tech time capsule once a week. Instead of seeing them as weird restrictions, think of them as an invitation to play a different game, one where the goal isn't productivity, but presence. So to recap, the 39 Melachot are less about random chores and more about protecting the creative energy of Shabbat. They cover farming, clothing, building, writing, fire, and carrying. Basically, the big categories of making stuff and moving stuff. Following them is like telling the world, for one day, I'm off duty. Whether you take them super seriously, adapt them, or just learn about them, they offer a fascinating glimpse into how Judaism shapes time. They're also a reminder that rest isn't just about collapsing on the couch. It's about intentionally not doing, so you can recharge for the week ahead. In a world where hustle culture is everywhere, Shabbat is the radical act of saying, nah, not today. And that's our deep dive into the 39 prohibitions on Shabbat. Who knew a list that sounds like the world's strictest camp counselor rules could actually be about joy and freedom? Thanks for hanging out with me and learning. If you enjoyed this episode, forward it to a friend who might like it, or leave a positive review so others can find the podcast. Until next time, Shabbat Shalom, and may your 25 hours be filled with peace, snacks, and 0 frantic emails.